Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with the esteemed Dr. Eric Lopkin. And many things to talk about. And we did the podcast on Wednesday. Thank all of our listeners for, accessing that. I think it's the major news item, Dr. Lopkin, is certainly the coronavirus vaccine and the parallel line of the infection rate. I mean, it's Drudge Report that has changed its kind of orientation is basically saying that every 30 seconds someone dies of corona. That's scary.
I'm not sure that's an accurate number. The death rate yesterday was very high, but it was a one day. We're not seeing those kind of numbers every day. So I don't know that the numbers that Drudge Report is talking about are correct.
It's still very scary.
It is very scary. It was sort of funny, though. Dr. Fauci was giving a press conference, and one of the reporters from a UK newspaper asked him, well, we beat you to approval. What's wrong with you people? What are you doing? UK has already approved the vaccine. FDA is actually expected to approve it. I believe their meeting is December 18th. I don't know why they didn't call an emergency meeting to get this done faster, but
bureaucracy is bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And that's the same people that got us to go on a little diatribe to, Trump is leaving, yes, but he was right on a lot of it. The same intelligentsia that's got us into every debacle ever can't get their ass in gear and make it happen.
And you know what? The Democrats politicized COVID. Everybody should be disgusted by this. Because for months prior to the election, Democrats were coming out saying, you can't trust the vaccine. They're rushing it through. You can't trust it. Andrew Cuomo said, New York doesn't even want the vaccine. Now they're begging for bigger allocations for the vaccine. And Bill Clinton and Barack Obama have both come out and said, yes, we are going to get vaccinated, and we're going to do it on television to show everybody that they should take the vaccine. So because Joe Biden won the election, all of a sudden the vaccine is scientifically sound. But when it looked like Trump was going to win, oh, no, you can't trust the vaccine. This is unbelievable. The fact that they would use fear tactics like this is completely unacceptable.
It's un-American. No, they would put their own interests, because basically I think it's globalism that doesn't really care about America versus nationalism, and nationalism had to be destroyed for the 1%, and that I really do believe.
Say again, we've talked about this on the podcast before. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's more just sheer power. I think the Democrats wanted
global
the power.
Corporate
the
interests.
Republicans, Trump wasn't one of them, so they didn't defend him all that much. But it was about not letting an outsider have the power.
That could be, and I'm not going to dispute that. I think it's bigger than that. I think it's global elites and nationalism is a huge threat to them, and Trump had to be destroyed. And that I will believe it to the end of days.
Well, we'll just agree to disagree on that. I think there's other things at play. But
okay, no problem at all. But
either way, though, whether your theory is right or mine is right, it still comes down to the behavior of these people to essentially abandon the people that voted for them and manipulate them. This is something that can't be allowed to continue.
It will continue, and it'll get more pervasive. How does that sound? Because you had a theory that someone else articulated, and I was like shocked that we're becoming a more divisive, and it's you against me, not we're all for it together, because of the Great Divide in the way we get our information. Sounds simplistic, but it's not.
No, it's definitely not simplistic. And yeah, I said this 10 years ago, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. People are only getting news from sources that agree with them. So if you're a conservative, you're going to Breitbart, you're going to a lesser extent now Fox. If you're a liberal, you're going to MSNBC and CNN. And you're not hearing the opposing viewpoint. And that is the big problem. We have become so politically correct on college campuses, in the media. It is offensive to have an opposing viewpoint. No, if you don't like somebody's viewpoint, you challenge them on it. You let them talk about it, and you provide evidence that they are wrong. Ideas are squashed by not letting people express them. They're squashed by proving them wrong. And you can only do that with an open dialogue and conversation.
Okay, but didn't liberalism, I think it started with Reagan. He controlled everything. He controlled the media, not directly. I'm saying he dominated. That's the better word. And liberalism, whatever you want to call it, is good. They may not be good at running countries, but they're exceptional about getting power. And they went around. They said, okay, this mega force is bigger than we can handle, and they got their hooks into academia and the media, and they've never left, and that's 30 years ago. I do believe that's what happened. And they're reaping the benefits because of that.
In academia, yes. The media, as much as I liked Ronald Reagan, what's going on with the media now is squarely his fault. The liberals just took advantage of what he was doing. It was the Ronald Reagan FCC that got rid of the fairness doctrine. And now, at the time, I was for it, because the argument was the fairness doctrine required television stations and newspapers to cover both sides of a story. And what was happening in effect was they would go, well, it doesn't make us look good, so we're not going to cover it at all. So Reagan was trying to fix that problem by getting rid of the fairness doctrine. What happened was, without the fairness doctrine, the liberal media went, hey, they just took the leash off of us. We can say whatever we want and not cover both sides of the story anymore.
And once again, the conservatives gave them the knife or the rope to hang them. And that's what happened. But it is happening, and, when I hang out with people that are, true liberals, it's shocking, like what they still believe in Russia. They believe that Trump is an operative of Russia. Which any sane person, come on. It
is absolutely amazing how facts no longer have a place in politics. Trump was exonerated by the Mueller report on Russian collusion. He was not exonerated about obstruction of justice, but he was exonerated about Russian collusion. And yet, I'm blanking on the guy's name, the congressman that was in charge, the Democrats.
Schiff.
Schiff, yes, Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff went on news programs after the Mueller report was out, kept saying that Trump was a Russian collaborator. And nobody in the media stopped him from spreading that lie. They just let him say it over and over again, despite the fact that Trump had been cleared.
Well, again, it's putting their own interest ahead of America's interest. And I think that's extremely. He knew it was a lie. Of course he did. He just didn't care.
And something else that went on, if you remember, both Schiff and Nadler were talking over and over again how they were demanding that the grand jury testimony be released. They were absolutely adamant that everybody should be able to see the grand jury testimony. Well, guess what? The grand jury testimony was released, and it actually showed that there was no evidence for impeachment, there was no evidence for Russian collusion, there was no evidence for obstruction of justice. Notice that once it was released, neither one of these people said a word.
Agreed. Totally agree. But, how does it affect, or how does it play into our democracy? I mean, are we getting to a point that we said this on the radio show, that are we ungovernable?
I don't know if we're ungovernable yet. I mean, it looks like we're getting there.
The trajectory's there.
I think what has happened to the American people is horrific. And a lot of it I blame academia for, because people have lost the ability to think for themselves, because they're not taught to think. They're taught to memorize information and repeat it. The public school system, and to a lesser extent the college system, has basically been created to churn out drones who will do what they're told and not think about it.
Yes, I think another player, though, is the internet. And let me just flash back. I'm dating myself, but who cares? When I was in college and I had a report, and I'm just making it up, was George Washington a good president or a good military leader? I'd have to read several books, articles, everything, and develop my own opinion. Now you just Google it, and you kind of form your own opinion, but you kind of don't. I think that's a big player as well.
Yeah, because people aren't taught to do research anymore.
There's no such thing.
They're basically taught to go on Google, take a look at the top 3 choices that Google gives you.
There you go.
And whatever it says, that must be the truth. And it
exactly
simply isn't anymore. People need to research. They need to look into things, and they're not doing it. I have spoken recently to some very smart people that I am absolutely amazed that when the topic comes to politics, they become drones, and they repeat the party line ad infinitum, and when you give them the evidence that they're wrong, it's like proving God doesn't exist to a devout religious person. It's we have faith. It's, and that's what politics has become. It's no longer run by intelligent people. It's the faithful.
Agreed with that 100%. I think we're up against a break, Dr. Lopkin.
We are. So we will be right back after this message.
To reach the next level, you need to operate at peak performance. The key to this is mastering the 7 elements of success. Learn how to master mindset, focus, operations, communications, innovation, evaluation metrics, and continuous improvement. Get the Biznetics way at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and bookstores near you.
And we're back. And if you want to be part of the conversation, you can call us at 563-999-3693. That's 563-999-3693.
Well, Dr. Lopkin, interesting, as we had that break, I was thinking a democracy depends on an informed public. Really, we're getting to a point that we don't have one. And then how do you have a democracy? So how do we go forward?
You know what? I'm going to go intellectual here for a moment and point out the fact that we actually don't have a democracy. We have a republic. There is a difference. And the republic is basically controlled by the two parties. In a true democracy, we would have more parties than just the Democrats and the Republicans. The problem is the only time we get a third party, the Democrats and Republicans, first of all, use their existing power to crush them. But second of all, we don't get what we really need, which is a true centrist third party. We get the fringe element on either the extreme right or the extreme left, and that just strengthens the Democrats and the Republicans' position.
Yeah, but Dr. Lopkin, that's a new phenomenon. There was a time 30, 40 years ago that Democrats and Republicans, differences, they could work it out. That's another discussion. But they were shades of gray. There's no shade. It's black and white now. I mean, that's not healthy.
No, it's not healthy at all. And if you take a look at some of the senatorial and congressional campaigns over the past, I'd say, 15 years, what you're seeing is people saying, no, we have to fight for our point of view and never give in, never compromise, and not work with the other side. And this is simply not how government is supposed to work. And I point to two fantastic examples. You had Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill. You had Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich.
Yes.
In both of these cases, these people were ideologically opposed. In fact, they were diametrically opposed on many issues, but they both came together, got over their differences, and did what they thought was best for the American people. You don't see that anymore. You see politicians trying to do what's right for their career, what's right for their party, but not what's right for America.
And that's the problem. So where do you go forward, Dr. Lopkin? If both parties are and all individuals are out for their own self-interest, then where's America's interest? And is it even important anymore? And are we on the final stages of America's preeminence? I think we are, by the way, but that's another story. Because you have basically the bottom of the barrel directing our. I mean, you look at China and other places. I mean, their leaders are the best of our leaders. I mean, really, Joe Biden, President of the United States? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no.
It's scary.
I mean, that's the thing, though. If you take a look at our politicians, I've said this over and over again. These are not the best and the brightest. The best and the brightest don't go into politics. And what's worse is that now it's not even that it's not the best and the brightest. We're talking it's now second and third generation of not the best and the brightest.
That is a great point, Dr. Lopkin. An amazing point. It's not even that the first generation Jumbias are in there. It's now you got, like it's almost like inbreeding, that now it's third generation morons, which is even worse.
I mean, because you have Rosa DeLauro in Connecticut, who got the position basically because her father had the position first and he handed it to her. She is now head of the House Appropriations Committee. This is a very powerful position, and she is an abject moron. On the other side of the aisle, you've got Mitt Romney, who, again, his father was a politician. He brought his son into the family business, and again, second generation abject moron. Massachusetts.
Abject moron. Wait. Now, this is something of just a pet peeve. Hold on. Is when you talk, Black Lives Matter might say white privilege, but they might have a point. You have something like Mitt Romney, not the brightest bulb in the Christmas tree, but because of his father and his background, he goes to, I'm making it up, but I'm sure it's pretty much the way it is, Harvard. I think he has a Harvard MBA and maybe went to Yale. But I know I teach at Southern. I know people at Southern Connecticut State University that are exponentially smarter and more creative than Mitt Romney. That's a fact.
Oh, absolutely. But again,
isn't that crazy?
We've got second-generation morons here on both sides of the aisle. And, I thank God for the state of Massachusetts, because for the first time in this year's primary, they finally voted against a Kennedy.
Yes, they did.
This is a whole family of morons that have dominated American politics.
But it's great. No, your point, Dr. Lopkin, oftentimes your points are brilliant. You look at John Kennedy. I'm sorry, you can pick up a very smart guy, capable. And then by the time you get to Ted, and then the list, it gets, and even John Jr., I mean, God rest his soul, not the brightest bulb in the Christmas tree. He really wasn't. Good-looking guy, blah, blah, blah. But basically, we're talking not the brightest bulb ever. Went to Brown. He went to Brown? Really? Flunked the bar twice.
That also goes back to the fact of the big denial that, there's no voter fraud. It is a matter of the historical record that John F. Kennedy was elected president because of voter fraud in Illinois. It was because of the dead people that voted for him. And if you ask anybody in Chicago, they're like, the dead people vote here all the time. I mean, they don't even deny that it happens. And voter fraud is so prevalent, and yet people go, no, there's no voter fraud. Yeah, why do they say it's no voter fraud? Because the people who are investigating it are the people who perpetuate it. So, of course, they don't want you to think it's voter fraud.
Yes, but in this election, I'm sorry, I still say Trump did it to himself. Was there voter fraud? Of course there was. But there's no question that Trump screwed himself.
Trump did screw himself. If he had stopped tweeting his maniacal tweets, if he had prepared better for the first debate,
if he was a human being,
if he had reined himself in and acted presidential throughout the COVID crisis, then he wouldn't have put off so many people. And honestly, there wouldn't have been enough voter fraud to put Biden in the White House.
That is it in a nutshell.
Because Trump screwed himself. And again, we were talking about that for months, saying the only one that can really beat Trump is Trump. And he did it.
And it's because of his, I'm sorry to say, he's not the great business person that people think, because at the end, firing, whatever, he had no one to advise him very simplistic strategies. And that is it in a nutshell. He had lightweights, B- players, and that's the end.
I'm gonna disagree with one point that you just said.
Go ahead, sir.
You had said that it was because he wasn't as great a businessman as people think. No, I'm going to go the other way. He is a great businessman. What he was not able to do was adapt from being the sole CEO of a company to working with a working committee the way government needs to be run. So, of course, as a CEO, oh, you're getting in my way, you're not doing what I want, you're fired. In business, that's fine, and a lot of times it works. You still want people to call you on when you're, absolutely on the wrong track. But government is a consensus. It's working with different departments. It's working with the Congress, the judiciary, and he was not able to make that pivot.
And I agree. The only thing I would say as a counter argument that as a business person, when you're completely doing the wrong thing, you're launching high sugar, high caffeine cola in today's market, and someone tells you, no, it's really the exact opposite to do because people are more health conscious. The point is, you got to listen. He never listened. Stop tweeting. You can tweet.
He never listened.
Never listened, and his first debate performance was, I'm sorry to say, off the hook.
All right.
I think that was the difference in the end.
I want to cut you off. We've only got a few minutes, and we've actually got some news bulletins. We've got some news bulletins coming in. Both Los Angeles and San Francisco have put forward stay-at-home orders. They are shutting down both of those cities. The state of California, the governor is expected to do the same for the entire state soon. So this
is
just
extremely scary.
Yeah,
very well done. I'm glad you interrupted, but that is scary.
They're shutting down California. Right now, Los Angeles and San Francisco have done it first, but the state is preparing to follow. So the COVID situation in California has gotten so bad, they are planning to shut down the state.
And that goes into real quick. I know we're up against the end, but I would have to say, was Trump right? The cure being worse than the situation or the remedies.
Based on the numbers, yes, I still have to agree with him that the cure has been worse than the disease. Because as bad as the disease is, we're still under 300,000 people dying. But last month, 15 million people reported that they didn't have enough food to get through the month. So you're causing a lot of... Yep.
Great show. Great show. We'll be back next week, and we'll do the podcast. Next week we will have a guest. But Dr. Lopkin, always a pleasure, and I love the breaking news and love what we covered today.
Absolutely. Of course, you've been listening to us at blogtalkradio.com/Carnivore Radio. You can hear the replay of this as well as the Carnivore Bites podcast on the Apple Podcasts app, xvadio.com/podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts. We'll be back.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. Thank our listeners.
Bite. And we'll see you next week.